Sego, Seguego. For those just tuning in, I'm Melissa Johns. I'm Mohawk, Turtle Clan, and French Canadian based in Toronto. I have lilac-colored hair, brown eyes, and I'm coming to you from the Imaginative main office here in Toronto. I'm the Digital and Interactive Coordinator at Imaginative, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our second Indigenous Digital Development Day, or iDDD. We're so excited to bring all of this new content to you and to continue to support Indigenous digital creatives at all levels in their careers. For that, we'd like to thank Eastside Games, Harbinger Foundation, and Ontario Creates for their incredible support in making this day possible. Expanding on last year's format of shorter workshops, I'm extremely excited to welcome you to our first Masterclass with Dallas Flet-Wapash. This Masterclass is geared towards developing competency in Unity, a world-class cross-platform game engine. If you've ever been curious about making video games or want to take your workflow up a notch, this is the place for you. We also want you to stay curious, so if you have any questions during this session, type them into the comments and we'll be there to answer them. Enjoy!
Tansei, I'm Dallas Flet-Wapash. Currently, I'm showing my face like this because my webcam is down for today. I also go by Dallas with a D on social media, and welcome to the Indigenous Digital Development Day, or iDDD. I'm here with you today as an instructor for a masterclass where the focus is on Unity. So just in case you didn't know, Unity is a software that you can download onto your computer and use it to make something like video games. What's so amazing about it is that it can be used for stuff beyond video games as well. in my case especially, I like to use Unity for a bunch of different use case scenarios. We have this familial curriculum by Lisa Flett, who is my mother. I helped her make a presentation using Unity, so it was kind of like a thing where you go into the game and you just listen to my mother's voice as she presents on this topic, and it's kind of cool because you're in the classroom. I've also used Unity to make, like, you know, an actual game. And that game was called Was Dogs. It's actually one of 7 games that I made for a, what do you call it, an art exhibition. The exhibition itself was the Insight exhibition that I worked with Taylor MacArthur as the second artist in that exhibition. And the show itself was curated by Cecilia Araneda. And even beyond that, I love to use Unity for teaching, because I love to teach about, you know, the stuff that Unity could be used for, as we're going to be looking at today. And I really love to use Unity in a variety of different ways. Like, we have this one piece that I worked on where I, you know, basically converted my bedroom through a series of pictures into a 3D model that I put into Unity, and found a way to sort of break down my bedroom into a interactable state. So as this sort of piece moves on, I'm sort of breaking it down state by state, where by the end, my room is comprised of nothing but particles that are able to be, you know, blown away in the Unity engine here, as we will soon see. So at this point in the presentation, my bedroom is no longer a 3D model made of pictures. It is particles that can be blown away by a wind source inside of the Unity engine. And it's stuff like this that really excites me about Unity. I also love to use Unity for XR related purposes. So for the past year, I've been taking a look at how augmented reality works inside of Unity. So I've been making a lot of prototypes related to that. Being goofy as I, you know, love to always be. We got another like AR face filter, learning about that around that time. You know, I think Unity could also be used for making prototypes or like apps that are related to, you know, language revitalization. And so all these things that I'm sort of showing you are made with Unity, because that is primarily the software of choice that I use. And, you know, I'm also kind of a goofy person, so every now and then I like to talk about my developer struggles where, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to do something in code. And, like, yeah, I like to do all sorts of stuff like that. And that leads us to where we sort of are now. So in case you're wondering who I am, like I said, Dallas Flett Wapash. I come from Kisigu's First Nations. I am an Innu / Soto individual, so I'm like twice as deadly, which is cool. And I currently live in Fox Lake, Cree Nation, which is like in the super northern area of Manitoba. Meanwhile, like Kisigu's First Nations is in Saskatchewan. People tend to know like Thompson or Gillam more in that area of Manitoba. But basically, Fox Lake Cree Nation is about 4 hours north of Thompson. So I thought what would be fun to tackle in this this class was to just show you what the fundamentals of Unity look like, and also I don't know, just demonstrate how maybe I've used Unity in the past and how I'm using it in the present, to show you a bunch of different ways that Unity could definitely be used, because Unity has such a wide ranging tool set that enables people to basically publish whatever they make in a variety of different ways and for like a variety of different contexts. I first learned how to use Unity back in college, actually. Yeah, we had an independent study project where we were basically able to take on whatever we wanted to learn. Up to that point, I'd learned about web design and graphic design, but it was really, you know, game development that really interested me. And, you know, since then, I've sort of just used Unity in a variety of, you know, different ways to either be like, you know, art-related projects, or, you know, video games, or things that are like, you know, interactive experiences using like VR or AR. And yeah, it's been an awesome journey so far. I love Unity as a tool, and I think it'd be amazing if we had more Indigenous developers out there using tools like this to make, projects that really relate to themselves, their cultural identity, and fulfill needs that maybe their nation is needing, that sort of thing. Because really, when it comes to a tool like this, that is the whole idea is making something that's interactive. Like there's tons of solutions or like different projects that can arise from that sort of thing. So I think it'd be great to actually start minimizing some stuff, including myself, and let's get right into Unity here. So when I work on all of my projects, I like to work with Unity Hub, which is a software that you can download by going into your web browser. If you went into Google, if you Googled how to download Unity, you'd probably end up on this web page right here. So download Unity, and then you can use this green button right here to download Unity Hub. You'd follow the installation process and get it all set up, and eventually you'd see something like this. And then after that, you'd want to make sure you're registered with Unity to make sure that you can actually use the software. And so, yeah, I like to use Unity Hub because it allows me to organize all of the projects that I work on project by project. So as you can see here, there's some prep I did for this particular class, and then I have Crappy Home Designer, which I submitted to Imaginative this year, which is super awesome. And then I even make projects for stuff that's as specific as an asset serialization test, which is just something technical that I'm trying to learn. And yeah, so a project can have all types of different contexts when working with Unity. And then also when it comes to Unity Hub, is it's able to have multiple different versions of Unity that are installed onto your computer. So in my case, I have 2020.3.17 all the way back to 2019.1.1 because those are versions of Unity that I've needed to use in the past. But before starting a project, I always like to use something that's new. I typically go for the LTS. So when I go to add here, LTS just means latest stable release or long-term support, I believe is what it stands for. And so you typically just go for the recommended release. After that, you would add the modules that you want to use for development. So in my case, I often if I have Visual Studio, which is the coding software that Unity uses, I will just check this off, and then I'll just keep in mind what I'm trying to make my game or my art project for. So usually that's to my Android phone, or if I'm wanting to put something online, then I will go for WebGL build support. So if you're wanting to build something today, then you can totally check off WebGL build support, and you go to next and follow the installation process for that. And that is super hunky-dory. But back in the projects tab for Unity Hub, what I think we can do now is make a new project for us to use. So in this particular case, I'm going to click on this little arrow here beside the new button so that I can specify which version of Unity I want to use today. In my case, I want to use the newest thing I got. So I'll click on that and it'll open up this window. And I think we'll stay on the 3D tab here just for the sake of explaining things. It's just a bit easier. So I'll just call this iDDD 3D because this is the 3D template. I think later on we're going to make another project that's using the 2D template. So for now, select 3D. Make sure you've given your project a name and you're noting where you're placing this particular project. I'll be able to speak to that very soon. So we will just click on create, and Unity will take some time to create this project for us for the very first time. All right, so when you first open up Unity, this is typically what you are going to see. You're going to have what's called a hierarchy on the left, something called the inspector on the right, a project and a console at the bottom, and then in the middle you have your scene, game, and asset store windows. And so we're going to take a look at how to navigate all of these things that are in front of us right now. And this is typically easier to explain in the 3D space, so that's why I had us make this particular project. So in the scene hierarchy, let's just make a couple of cubes. So we're going to right click in this space, and we're going to do a 3D object. And then we're going to go to cube, And then that popped one up into our scene. It's magical, isn't it deadly? What we can do very quickly is also make a 3D object sphere, because I just want to have two different shapes to sort of like reference for what we're going to go over next. And if you see these arrows here, just move this sphere a little bit to the back there. In case you don't see these arrows, you want to make sure you're clicked on your sphere in the hierarchy here, and then press W on your keyboard to have these arrows pop up, and then you'll be able to move it after that. And so at this point, I want to go over some shortcuts that Unity has at its disposal. So with the scene view, you want to make sure you're in that view at first. You can use the mouse wheel. Hooray! The mouse wheel to zoom in and out as if you were, the same wheel that you would use to like scroll down social media or something like that. You can also use the mouse wheel by clicking it. So if you click on your mouse wheel and start dragging your mouse, you'll notice the little icon turns into a hand. And the hand is able to pan around this world of ours. And that is a very useful thing that we can use. And also, if you press Alt on your keyboard, your little mouse cursor will turn into an eyeball, which is like, something useful. Because if we then do a left click while this eye is on, we'll start orbiting around a specific point to get a better angle on the things that we're looking at. So that is another helpful shortcut that we can have. So by mouse wheel, clicking it, zooming in and out, and Alt left clicking, we're able to navigate around our scene pretty effectively. Another thing that we are able to do is if we click on, say, this sphere here, say we're like super lost, we don't know where stuff is in our world because we got so much going on. But what we're able to do is by using the hierarchy here, if I wanted to find my cube specifically, I could click on it here and then move my cursor over to the scene view and press F. That F is for focus or find. So we're able to find our cube in some way so that we're able to hone in on it and make changes to it however we desire. So with our cube and sphere here, there's another concept that I want to show you that Unity has in order to just make it easier for you to navigate around when you're doing stuff with Unity, because you need to know that stuff. It's fun. It's good to know. So what you can do is when you highlight a object in your world, you can press W to show up these little arrows that allow you to move your object in 3 different axes. These axes are X, Y, and Z. So you'll notice that X is noted with this little gizmo that is up here in the top right corner to give you an idea of where the X is moving. Then we also have the Y noted by this green arrow. These kind of look like upside down cones. And then we also have the Z axis, which is kind of like back and forth. So yeah, if I look at it this way, X is kind of like left and right. The Y axis is up and down. And then the Z axis is backwards and forwards. So that's how this space is sort of thought of in terms of the worlds that we work in. You'll notice that whenever I'm moving this cube here, in the inspector, we see our cube noted down here, and we have a transform. And whenever I move my cube, we notice that the numbers are also changing for the Z axis whenever I make changes there. And so this is kind of neat because you can actually type in your own numbers to use. So let's say on the Y axis, I wanted to rotate this cube by 45 degrees. I would type that in there, and then the change is made for me. I could also do that for the X axis and start rotating my cube like a madman by typing in all this stuff that we don't need. So for now, I'm just going to reset that to 0. So yeah, that is something that is available to us to use. More shortcuts that we can learn are, so we got W for the arrows, and we have E on our keyboard for the rotation circles, rotation rings, I guess. And much like the arrows, we can rotate this cube in 3 different ways. And we can also sort of click inside of the general sphere to rotate, across a bunch of different axes at the same time. That's also something available on the transform tools, or the W, moving these things around. There's little boxes that are inside of these arrows. And if we click on these little boxes, it allows us to move our cube in like not just like left and right, but also up and down at the same time. And so this is really helpful in case, like, you know, imagine this cube is like a picture frame and we want to move it, but we want to make sure it stays on the wall. We could then use this like red square to make sure that it's like staying on the wall, but it's still moving up and down. So that's super useful. It's also important to note these two little buttons up here. We have pivot and global. These might be different for you on first glance. And pivot and center become more important when like further down the line. I'll jump back to that. But global is will change to local if you turn that on and off. And so basically local means it starts showing us these little transform tools that we have specific to this object as opposed to the larger context of the world. So that's an important thing to note there. If we go back to local, we can start making changes locally to this object, or we can start manipulating this object in a context that's very specific to this individual object, and that is good to know. So if we also move on our shortcuts, we can press R for the scale boxes, and we can use these little boxes that show up to manipulate our cube however we want. If we click on the middle one, it'll do a uniform scale. So instead of making it, you know, just longer, just thinner, we can have it stay the same size, but at a different scale. So that is great to know as well. And just in case you made a big mistake and you want to just get rid of it, because, you know, sometimes that happens during development, you can press Control Z to undo all the bad stuff that you did. So I'm just pressing that repeatedly to undo all the changes that I made to my cube. So yeah, with those shortcuts in mind, you're now a Unity master. You can do it all. But that's generally the spirit I have, where like, you know, you just because you don't know how to do something doesn't mean you can't. This Unity engine is suited for a wide variety of different contexts that it's super exciting. But these are kind of just like fundamentals that I'm going over, so it's easy to navigate through all of those different contexts you might shape this Unity engine for. Another thing I'd like to show you is the parent-child concept. The idea behind that is that imagine this cube or this sphere was like a part of this cube in some ways. Maybe we can make a little arm out of spheres. So in order to do that, I'm going to press Control D while highlighting the sphere, and this will duplicate my sphere for me. I'm going to try and make a very, I don't know, minimal arm, I guess. You know, maybe this sphere's got some gains and it's just a little bit bigger, because that's the bicep, you know. So that's I guess the shoulder joint, and then this is the hand, and this is the bicep, because that's how arms are made, apparently. And so the way that the parent-child concept works is I want to be able to move this cube and have these three spheres move along with it. And the way we get that to work is we can select all of these spheres. The way we can do that is by clicking on our first sphere and then holding Shift on our keyboard and going to the bottom sphere, and then it highlights them all. We could also, in the scene view, click and drag a little marquee box. It works every now and then, but you could also click, shift, click for other objects to multi-select. And once you have all your spheres selected, you can click and drag them right into the cube. And now wherever this cube moves, so too do the spheres. So this is really important for, like, especially animated characters, where animated characters have a lot of moving body parts, but it, like, you know, they all need to stay together so that things are working properly. And so that is why Unity has this sort of like parent-child concept. And that's really a thing that is widespread across like a bunch of different software. What you could also do is create things that are just like empty, like they're just containers. So what you could do is right-click here and create an empty object. And then what you could do is call this like container for cube if you wanted to. And what I'll then do is I will move this empty all the way over here, because maybe that's like the way I want to arrange things for some reason. It's very helpful for empty game objects to have what are called Gizmo icons. So if I highlight this container for cube, go to my inspector, and click on this box, I can select an icon to represent this empty game object. So I have this, like, you know, this container for cube. And with that set up, I can now click and drag my cube into my container for cube. And this empty game object is now sort of the offset that's been made for this, like, I don't know, cube arm that I have here. And while we're on this subject, you'll notice that we're currently on pivot right now. So that means that like the things are going to rotate around this specific like anchor point that I've sort of made because of how I've parented the objects together. But if you wanted, for some reason, you could also click on pivot to toggle it to center mode. And then things will start rotating according to, like, you know, where the center point is for all of the game objects. And so, yeah, that's a way that things are working inside of Unity. So, yeah, that is essentially how you navigate in terms of creating your worlds and things like that. But there's a ton of different, you know, ways that you could work with the software. The next thing I'd like to show you is sort of a demonstration of how files are made for like Unity projects and how those are like all organized and stuff. The easiest way I can really demonstrate that is with a silly picture. I love me some silly pictures, you know what I'm saying? So what I have is a subwoofer, which is a picture of a subwoofer, but it's got a sub on its head and it's got dog ears and a snout right there. Very cute. It's a subwoofer because it, you know, goes woof woof, but it's also got a sub on his head, which is like a silly pun. It's like a multi-level pun that I like. But this is literally a picture on my computer. It's a PNG. So like this could have been like a selfie of myself or something like that existed on my computer. And Unity is able to take a wide variety of different file types, and a picture happens to be one of those file types. So I'm going to click and drag a subwoofer into my Unity project. And we see that subwoofer is now listed in my assets folder. What I could actually do in this case is right-click in this space to go to create and then make a folder. And I will call this pictures. And after that point, I can click and drag my subwoofer picture into my pictures folder. And now I'm being organized, which is like, you know, a proper way to work. It's great. People will love to work with you if, you know, you organize your stuff by, you know, what it is, or like by file types maybe. And so this subwoofer is now by default, when you put a picture into your project, it comes in as a default, which is basically like a texture. So what I could do to demonstrate, this would be good to show you as well. Let's create another folder inside of the assets folder. So we're going to go to right click, create folder once more. And we're going to call this materials. And we're essentially going to make a new material. A really brief explanation of what materials are is basically they give a 3D object its physical properties and appearance. So these spheres and cube have the same material that make it look white and make it cast shadows. And so if I then go to my materials folder, I can right click, go to create, and then let's make a material. And I can call this, you know, example matte. And for this material, I could click and drag it onto my cube, and that will update the way it looks, but it didn't in this case because this is like, we haven't made any changes to this material, so no visual change is taking place. But now in this case, we're able to use that subwoofer texture by placing it in the albedo here. As it shows up in the inspector. You have to highlight the material in the project window before you're able to see this stuff. So that's an important note. If you go inside the albedo by clicking on this little circle icon there, it'll show you all of the things that this particular slot can take in. So the albedo slot can take in all these pictures that I have. Well, you know, all this stuff came with the project, but I want to use my subwoofer image. So I'm going to click on that. And that has now textured my image in a, or it's textured my cube in a weird way where it's put my subwoofer and all of the faces, they're called, of this cube. It's like a dice, very silly looking dice. And so let's say you wanted to use this picture in its like, proper context. That was like a picture. What you could then do is find your subwoofer picture that you have because you love puns as well. And you could press Control D on it. And that would just like duplicate the image. But now what we can do with this duplicate is rename it to like subwoofer. We'll call this just like sprite. And so for the sprite copy of this, what I can then do is go to texture type and change it from default to sprite, 2D and UI. And by doing that, I'll then need to click on apply to make this change happen for this photo. And now if I click and drag sprite into my hierarchy, it's been added to my world as a sprite game object. And so a sprite game object is just a game object that's had a sprite renderer added to it. And it's automatically put my sprite picture into the sprite slot here. Yeah, so it's a bunch of jargon, but I think like it's, I should also go over that. So basically what's happening here is this hierarchy has about 4 game objects in it right now. And each of these game objects has different components inside of it. And we can see these components inside of the inspector. So this main camera game object has a transform component, a camera component, and an audio listener component. The directional light has a transform component, a light component. And the subwoofer sprite has a transform component and a sprite renderer component. So typically every game object is going to have a transform because we need to note where it's like located in our world. And then components are added just to give something functionality. And so right now in our world as it exists, there's currently not a ton of functional elements. Like we have the bare minimum. We have a camera that's able to show us stuff. And that's what we're currently seeing when we check out the game view. But if I press play, there's no functional elements that have been added to like change the state of the game as it runs. I could very quickly just to my subwoofer sprite, I could go to add a component to add a functional element to it. And for that, I will add the rigid body component. And this will add a functional element that applies physics to my sprite, so my image. And if I press play, it makes my image fall over time. And so by that general concept, you would just keep adding components and components to, game objects in order to make them function in various different ways. In the spirit of that, I think it would be super cool to show you how to make our own component to, suit whatever, purpose that we're wanting to make in terms of like, functionality. So what I'm going to do is for this cube, I'm going to get rid of these spheres by highlighting them again with the shift click, and then pressing delete on my keyboard. And I just want to make sure, I think what I'll do is I'll just move this cube into the container for cube, like more closer in proximity to it for some reason. I don't know why, it just helps me be organized. And so I can also get rid of the sprite image right now. Because what I want to do is I want to put the original material back onto this thing, but I don't know if that's actually, the default diffuse one is the one I want. So I just went to my cube, I went to the mesh renderer component, I went to the materials tab in this component, and then I changed element 0 from my material that I made, and I changed it to default diffuse. And that's how we are at where we're at right now. And so I'm going to add a component to this cube that does something whenever we press the space bar on our keyboard. So I'm going to go to add component, and then I'll just do, I need to make a name for this component that I'm making. And it can't be the name of any of these components that are like listed here or that are available in this huge list of components. Might be fun if, you take some time someday to take a look at all the different components that exist in Unity. So for now, I'm gonna just call this spacebar. I guess that's one word, spacebar action. Notice how I've capitalized spacebar and action. That is called Pascal casing, where every word is capitalized. So I'll create new script, create and add. And typically what will happen is Visual Studio, which is a coding software, will open up for you. But in some cases, you need to double click on the component name after to like actually get things going. I don't know why. And Visual Studio will pull up something that looks like this. So to give a brief, really brief introduction to coding, or like what Unity uses coding for, Unity often works with what is called C#, which is a coding language. And so this code is organized and written in a way that is recognized by a compiler, and that compiler is reading C# code. So it's reading in the C# format so that it understands what is being written and read here. And so by default, Unity gives us void start and void update, which are two functions that are part of the Unity engine library here. And so if I were to get rid of all of these things that we see up here, stuff would start breaking. We see that mono behavior is no longer blue, it's red. We lost like, I think it was like, it said Unity message up there, and start and update are now yellow for some reason. And that's because we're basically like, if I put them back, oh, nope, that was something from earlier. I can just press Control Z to undo that. These things become blue again because they're part of the Unity engine library that we're using in this particular C# script. So that is, always important to know that sort of stuff. And so as a brief example, what I can do is I'll make a reference to something in the code here, and you can totally follow along for this part. I'm going to write the word public because I want to be able to access this back in the editor. Well, I got a lot of stuff open right now. So back in the editor, I want to be able to see it the same way I see edit collider or is trigger here. So that is why I'm using the keyword public. And then I want to use a string, which is like a word or a phrase. So I'm going to write string. And then I need a shorthand code name for like this thing that I'm making. And so I'm going to call this what to say. And then what we can do is in the update function, actually, before we do that, we should make our own function because I think that'll get the point across a bit easier. So we'll write public and then void, because we notice that void is also written for the start function here. And then this is also using Pascal casing where the every word is capitalized. So we're going to do the same thing here. We'll call this function say something. And we also notice that start and update have these two brackets afterwards. So we're going to add those as well. Bracket, bracket. And we also see these curly brackets as well. So we're going to add those because the general idea is that say something is only going to do what is inside of these function braces right here, or these curly brackets. And so what we want this particular function to do is utilize the debug class, which is part of the Unity engine library. So I'm going to write debug. So debug is a class part of Unity engine. And debug has a bunch of different commands inside of it. And the one I want to access is the log command. So debug.log. And Visual Studio is really nice because it tells us what this particular command does. It says logs a message to the Unity console. I'll be able to show you what that looks like after we write this. So I'm going to do function brace, and then semicolon, because we always want to end things we write with a semicolon. It's kind of like the period in a sentence in terms of like how the compiler reads this stuff. And so all we need now is a string to go inside of these braces. So you could like just make quotation marks and say, hoa, it works, and like that'll work just fine. But it'd actually be fun to set up what to say inside of the editor. So I'm just going to remove those two quotation marks and put in what to say as a reference. And so now we will have to configure this inside of the editor, like back in Unity, and that'll be hunky-dory. And then lastly, what we'll do as part of this like introduction is we will write an if statement. And so if statements are written like this. We type in if, like all lowercase, and then we have to basically give it parameters. We have to say if this thing happens, and the thing happens has to be inside of function braces. So we have to say if input, which is another class inside of Unity, input dot, and there's a whole bunch of different commands here, but just for the sake of brevity, I'll write get key down. And then get key down takes in a key code as we see listed here in Visual Studio. So what I need to do is use another set of function braces because we're doing inception stuff. It's a function inside a function. If input dot get key down and key code dot, because we want to access a specific key to use, space. That is the key that we'll use in this case. That's the space bar. And then after that, we're going to use a set of curly brackets. And notice how this is, Visual Studio is formatting this in a way where these curly brackets are indented the same amount as the word if here. Meanwhile, these curly brackets are indented with the word void. And like, this is just a, it's a formatting thing. It's best practices where, you're formatting your brackets properly in this kind of sense, because otherwise, if you mangle your curly brackets in a weird way, it just becomes hard to read the code if you're someone else, even if you're yourself, well, you're always yourself. But like, if you're looking at these brackets, it becomes very confusing when you just look at the code again. It's like, okay, I don't understand what's going on here. And just indenting your brackets properly is a great way to do that, or to stay, organized and keep your code legible, which is awesome. And so now what we're going to do is we're just going to say, we're just going to use this function whenever we press down on the space bar. So we're going to write say something. And then after that, we'll just use our function braces and a semicolon. And now that is all our script needs. So I'm going to highlight lines 14 to 9 here and save my script. And it's almost good to go. Last thing I like to do is just add comments to scripts that I make. And so what we'll do in this case is we'll just write on line 5, we have to type in 2 forward slashes in order to like write a comment. And so just like the 2 slashes we see here, there's a comment that Unity has added itself, which is super helpful. Now I'm just going to write this script is used as a demonstration for C# coding. Nice. And so, yeah, basically to outline what this script is used for. You could also like add your name here or something like that. Like this script was written by this person, if that's what you want to do. It depends on, the scope of your team. If you got a lot of people working with you, it just helps to know who's written what and maybe clarify like what functions are doing as they're happening. All right, so now what to say is showing up in the editor here. We can type in something like, I could just do hoa again. That's like an exclamation where I'm from, where it's like hoa, I like to say that to my cat a lot when she's being rowdy. Like when she's jumping all around the house, I'll be like, hoa! Like, calm down, man. Was if she's, being super rowdy and stuff like that. But for this context, I'll just say, hoa, it works. Maybe you want to say something different that, is more contextually related to where you live. Tons of stuff you can do inside of Unity. And so if I save my scene, I can press play. And then if I press spacebar, I got hoa, it works, showing up in my console. And we see that it is happening every time I press on the spacebar. So that's a good thing to know. I think the last real important fundamental to go over is the concept of prefabs. So what I'm going to do in this case is create a prefab out of this container for cube. But before I do that, I want to make a folder specifically for prefabs. So prefabs, and then I'm going to open up that folder. I'm going to click and drag container for cube and put it right into there. So the general idea behind prefabs is that imagine these two things weren't prefabbed, and I wanted to make a change to this container for cube that impacted all of these instances of container for cube. Currently, if I wanted to make this cube bigger, if I select it like that, it only makes this one cube bigger. But the idea behind prefabs is that you're able to go to the master prefab copy, maybe go to the transform, and you can change the scale from 1 to 2. And all of a sudden, that change will impact all of the instances of that cube in your world. So this is very, like you could imagine Super Mario Brothers, where there's the coin. And imagine Shigeru Miyamoto, he one day decided, oh, I don't like the sound that the coin makes when Mario, like, you know, grabs a coin. Instead of manually one by one changing the sound effect for every coin in the game, of which there's like probably thousands, instead Shigeru probably just went to the prefab and was like, you know, change the sound effect somewhere listed here, which is totally a thing that you could do. So I'm going to set that back to 1. And what's cool about prefabs, or at least the way we've sort of arranged things in this scene, is that now that we have 3 cubes, all of these cubes have that same script of spacebar action. So it'll say, "Hoa, it works," 3 different times every time we press on the spacebar. And to demonstrate this, I'll just press spacebar, and all of a sudden, for one press, I get 3 different logs. And that is how things generally work inside of Unity. So what I typically always like to do is keep all of my stuff organized. So I'm going to create another folder for this script. I'm going to call it scripts, plural, and then click and drag spacebar into scripts. And then what I also like to do, just for the sake of project management, is I like to make a folder called main, to which all of these things go inside of. And that reason will be made a little bit more clear after this next part that we tackle. And that involves the asset store. So if I click on asset store up here, we see that the asset store has moved. And so this used to be inside of the editor itself, but instead now it's online. So I'm going to go to search online here, and that's going to open up my web browser where I'm able to take a look at some stuff. And so if I just move this window over here, this is the asset store. Currently there's a sale going on where you're able to take a look at a bunch of different stuff that is on sale. But maybe you just wanted like quickly to have some like sound effects for your project. A ton of different assets are available on the asset store. So if I go to search for assets, you see that I've been searching for mesh baker, path creator, stuff like that. But if I just type in sound effects, maybe just those 2 letters, you can then scroll down and say that you want free stuff, because, you know, free stuff is cool. You can then find like a specific asset that you might want. And so just for demonstrative purposes, there's this one by Olivier Girardot. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your name. But you can click on assets in the asset store. And typically you can just click on the open in Unity button after you've like gotten it. If it's your first time seeing this, you'll probably see something that's like, you know, purchase, but this is free. So, you know, you don't have to buy it. So you click on open in Unity. Your web browser is going to be like, can I open this in Unity editor? And you'll be like, sure, go ahead. And this is going to open what's called the package manager inside of Unity. So in a regular context, if you wanted to access it the other way, you could go to Window and then Package Manager. And by doing it this way, you know, you're able to see all of the other assets that you have. And because I'm a long-time Unity dev, you notice I have a ton of assets here. And so if you wanted to add a asset from the asset store, you would just go to, this would be like download. And then after it downloads, you could press import. And after that takes some time, you get to review all of the assets that you might be adding to your project. And you're like, okay, that's fine. And you click on import. And then Unity will take some time, depending on the size of the assets. It'll take some time to import everything. In this case, it shouldn't take too long because it's just a bunch of sound effects. And in this case, after it's done doing the import, you now have a new folder called Free Pack. And typically every asset will have its own name. And so that's the reason why we have our own folder called main here, is so that we can do our own navigating besides the third-party like assets that we're getting into our project. And it just helps us stay organized. We're not mixing and matching stuff. And so if we wanted to test out this free pack, what we could do is actually alter the script that we have a bit. So I'm going to go to my cube, and I'm going to go to spacebar action. And in this case, we're just going to add another thing that allows us to make some sound, depending on, you know, the sound that we want to make. So for that, I'm going to do public audio clip. And then, so this will be the sound that we want to make. So I'll just say sound effect. I was going to say effects, but it's just one effect. And then we'll need access to a component that is called the audio source. So I'm going to do private audio source. And then just for clarity, I'll say this is the speaker because the sound effect is going to be coming out of the speaker. And now in our code, or the say something thing, we can keep the debug.log statement, but instead in this case, we'll also add functionality for our speaker. So I'm going to do speaker, I'll spell it right, and I'll use the period to access audio source specific commands. And the one that I want to use is play one shot. And play one shot takes in a audio clip, at least like that's something you could just put in. So I'm going to do sound effect. And then if you wanted to get more complicated, you could put more commas to say like, I want it to play at a certain volume. But for now, we'll just use our sound effect just for the sake of this demonstration. And so now if I go back to the minimize, now what I can do is go back to my prefab, go back to my container for cube here, and this is the cube where the script is attached. And so this this game object needs an audio source attached to it. So I'm going to go to add component, audio source. I see it's at the bottom there. And so I've added this audio source, and that's really all I need to do for now. Next, I need to just add a sound effect or an audio clip. And so I'm going to click on this little circle here. And there's a whole bunch of different sound effects that we can use. Sure, let's use an explosion for now, just for the sake of brevity. So explosion 1 came from that free asset pack that we had. And now, whenever we press spacebar, we'll be able to hear the sound. And there's actually something we need to do in the script still. So speaker here, because it's a private reference, we haven't actually connected the dots yet. So what we have to do is make we need to bring back the start function from Unity. So I'm going to write void start function brace. And because I'm in Visual Studio, and Visual Studio is nice and beautiful, it did all the rest of the formatting for me. So now at this point, I'll just say speaker equals get component. And then I need to use triangle braces to specify what type of component I want. I'm looking for an audio source. So I'm going to copy and paste this into these brackets. I'm going to go outside of the brackets because this is a function and add the function braces. And this is all I want to do. So I'm going to write a semicolon once more. And that's how we've set up the reference. So that is now properly all set up. And now if we were to press play on this, last thing I want to do is on this prefab, I want to change the spatial blend from 2D to 3D. So I'm just changing that because this component allows for changes like that, which is super nice. Lastly, I'll change it from logarithmic roll-off to linear. And I'll change it from 500 to maybe like 20 for now, because I think these cubes are super close to us right now. Just for the sake of our eardrums, I'm going to delete this third cube that we have because I want to be able to just hear the same sound effect twice. So I'll just move this other cube to the side. So in my game view, I've selected my container for cube, the second one in the hierarchy, and I'm just going to use the inspector to quickly move this other cube so that they're kind of like side by side or further away from each other. So I'll press play, and then that's a super loud sound effect, but yeah, every time I press spacebar, sound is playing. And so yeah, pretty much from this point, you could use Unity for whatever like context best suits like your needs. Because like you could have this be made for, I don't know, like an art installation, an art exhibition, or like a game that, uses sound effects or something like that. So you can totally use all of these concepts into something that best works for your project. In case you're like me and you're always wanting to learn new things about Unity, what you could do in that case is, like Google is probably going to be your best friend. What I often do if I'm running into an issue, like let's say I had a character and I wanted that character to be looking at my mouse cursor on my screen, In that case, it's a 2D game, so I often search up stuff like Unity 2D and then my problem. So how to look at mouse. And that's the kind of issue that I have here. I see that a video's popped up. Maybe I could watch that. Often what I do is I go to answers.unity.com. This is like a forum where a bunch of different people post technical solutions to questions that people are posing. So in my case, I would use something like this, and like after you learn more and more about Unity, it becomes easier to sort of like reappropriate these like technical solutions for your own contexts. Just by reading this code, I know this like is different than this variable that this person's written, so I would fix that if I were to copy and paste this into my code. So yeah, that's one outlook or one path that you can take to learning more about Unity, is you just have a question, you Google it, and you find a solution on the forum. Another thing I like to do is I like to use I like to use Unity, or I like to use YouTube, where I look up people's tutorials on how to use Unity in a specific way. So for example, on YouTube, I looked up how to make a game for Oculus Quest 2 Unity, and I found this video that is like super long, and it's by Dilmer, I believe. Yeah, one of my favorite YouTubers who uploads a lot of tutorials about stuff. I see we got chicken nuggets in the corner there. Very funny. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend also, besides Google, using YouTube with like a question you might have, and you'll probably find something there. But if you wanted to learn straight from the source itself, you could also go to learn.unity.com, and there they have a ton of resources, like a ton, to learn about specific things in Unity. Like we have this karting micro game. You could learn how to make a Mario Kart kind of clone or something like that. And a whole bunch of different things specifically about Unity. Sometimes I like to use this to like learn about something that Unity has just added, or something specific to my project. Like just the other year, I was looking up how to do post-processing in my project, and a tutorial like this was very effective in getting me where I needed to go. I'm probably going to be looking up this one because that looks amazing in terms of tutorials. So yeah, that's typically where I go to learn more about Unity. It's very, very awesome. Next up, I believe I also needed to show this thing, basically how files are working inside of Unity on our computer. So what you can do is say, like, we're back to our subwoofer here. If I right click on this image, I can right click and then go to Show in Explorer. And that's going to open up my file explorer, where you're going to see all these different folders that I have. But I think this is like an important concept to sort of outline for us. Earlier in this class, I clicked and dragged this subwoofer image into the Unity project, and from that, a copy was made. And so from that copy, I made another copy and changed its its nature. And so it's just important to note that Unity projects are essentially they'll copy everything that you put into them. You'll notice that this picture came from a folder on my computer called Masterclass iDDD. But in this case, this copy exists. Where does it exist? It exists in my GitHub folder, inside of my Unity project folder, inside of my assets folder, inside of main, inside of pictures. So yeah, that's kind of how Unity operates with its files. So just to really nail this point home, if I were to double click on this subwoofer image and then go to edit and make a small adjustment to it, like if I were to draw a little like smiley face because I'm feeling happy today, and then save that image, letting my ink dry, thank you, and then we just close that, we would see that the subwoofer image was changed here inside of the Unity project, but its original copy wasn't changed at all. That smiley face is gone, so it's a very sad picture. So that is an important note to have when, understanding how Unity sort of operates on your computer. Often the way I like to work with Unity is I like to make my own stuff. And so in that case, I would use something like Audacity. So I've just pulled up Audacity, and I could quickly just like record something and be like, hey guys, it's me. I'm a sound effect in a game. And then I press stop, and then I can see how that sounds. Hey guys, it's me. I'm a Yeah, it sounds like garbage. And so you could just like press Control A after that to select all your stuff and maybe add an effect if you wanted, like, I don't know, some reverb is stuff I like to add because it's like kind of cool to be like echoey in the room. Like, hey guys, it's me. I'm a sound effect. And so with that general concept, you would go to File and then export as like an MP3 or WAV. And then you'd be able to, just like the pictures from earlier, click and drag it into Unity and you'd have some sound effects. This is actually something I used a lot for the Crappy Home Designer project, which I think I can start showing you now. And this is how Crappy Home Designer looks for me in terms of like how it exists as a Unity project. So yeah, my work process is very iterative, at least in the context of a short artist residency. So this was originally made over the course of a 4-week residency, and then in my spare time, I've sort of come back to it to make updates and stuff like that. I think there's even updates in here that are not in the festival version right now. Like I've made updates to the lava pit to make it more of a character. And so, yeah, in this project, we're seeing a lot of the same concepts that I've sort of gone over where every single item in this world is like its own game object that has different components attached to it with different materials. And in the case where I want something, you know, myself to like add to the project, we have things like my own scripts, like neighbor movement or velocity tracker. And based on like how I've organized these scripts, like different things will happen in the world as I've sort of like set it up. And so back to the note of like sound effects, this is like super, I don't know, I like it. But if I go into the alphabet folder, I have a bunch of different audio clips in here.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
So what I did was I literally like went into something like Audacity and I went A, B, and I made adjustments to the way it sounded, obviously, because my voice isn't that squeaky, hopefully. And if I press play, I used these audio clips for this game here. In this way, you'll see right away. So for every letter that's being shown to the player, I'm sort of playing a different sound effect. So if it's S, it's going to say, you know, S, or T, U, and yeah, everything defaults to Dum Dum Stupidville if you don't put a name in there. So that is something that I've done. If you wanted to see what that sort of script looked like, I could sort of show you, but I don't want to like scare you off or anything like that. But we have a dialogue speaker script that I've made here. And I've added a bunch of parameters that I can change myself, like the minimum pitch or the max pitch of the speaker. That's in case I have like characters who like have a deep voice or something like that. And I just want to have that freedom to change that as I wish. I have a speech rate, which is basically how fast the character talks. But a script like this uses something like this code that you see here, where when I'm typing the name, I'm just looking for whatever letters being spoken at that individual moment. And I add, what do you call it? A sound to it. I play a sound effect based on, you know, what I want to do there. And you can see in my scripts folder, I have tons of different scripts because once again, my process is very iterative. So often what might happen is I make a script, see if something works, and then I incorporate it into something larger or a different kind of scenario. And that's sort of the way I like to develop things. But yeah, there's a whole, you know, a bunch of different things that are working inside of this, this project here. But the context of a like an art game isn't the only like, you know, thing that Unity could be used for. And I'd actually like to show you something. All right, so this is the Insight Exhibition WebGL Unity project that I made with Taylor MacArthur. So it was a very like real need that we needed to make this project for, because basically what happened. So this is actually an older version of Unity that we're seeing here. This is a totally different context from Crappy Home Designer. This is the original Insight exhibition that Taylor and I had to make as a pivot because of COVID. Originally, the plan was, so The show was curated by Cecilia Araneda, and Taylor MacArthur and I were the artists in that exhibition, and we were going to exhibit in person at the AGSM that was located in Brandon, Manitoba. But because of COVID, we had to suddenly pivot to everything to be a digital context where things were online and stuff like that. And so what we ended up doing, you can see I've sort of like grown in terms of like how I organize folders and stuff like that since then, is we made a completely virtual exhibition where all of the art pieces are separated into their own, they're called scenes. So this is a scene right here where we've added some functionality to look at Taylor's artwork here. Haji, I think I said that wrong. But yes, so this is a piece made by Taylor MacArthur for the exhibition. It's one of many. And if we go back to mine, I've done a sort of similar thing where there's like, you know, little UI buttons that are added for the context of this art exhibition where we're able to interact with some stuff. And so what you're hearing right there is an audio clip that I maybe made in Audacity or something like that, just like I showed you earlier. Oh, and that
Good
other
morning,
stuff
everyone.
we hear.
Mr. Dallas with a D here.
Nice. We see, yeah, this other TV is being super loud. It doesn't even. We're gonna turn it down. Can I just stop it? I'm gonna pause it. That's what I'm gonna do. So the way this worked was actually pretty interesting. Basically, these are all like cubes that I put textures on, and these textures came from a DSLR where I was just taking pictures of like my house and like the cartridges I'd made for the physical exhibition, and then you know, some gameplay that I'd made. I think I want to revisit these things, maybe get them back online or get them online and like playable in that context. But yeah, well, time will tell what happens in that case. So yeah, in this case, like Unity was able to fulfill a very real need to get this exhibition in a different context. So that just like shows that Unity can be used in a bunch of different ways. And I think I even have something else I can show in that regard. Using Unity, I also made a 360 video that was made for a student project. I was taking a class at Brandon University, was able to have Casey Adams be the instructor, which was like super cool. She gave me a lot of freedom. It was like super awesome. So she's very supportive of like my digital like, you know, background and the stuff that I wanted to pursue. So I was very fortunate to have that opportunity. But yeah, this stuff is using Unity as well, where you see a picture of me that's like a sprite. This fence is like just I'm pretty sure it's just a shape I've like contorted to try and look like a picket fence. And just like the picket fence, the houses are made of like cubes and stuff like that as well. And through this process, I learned how to basically time things out using what are called timelines. And so I just Googled like, you know, Unity timelines. And from that, I was able to learn how to do stuff like this, where there's more like complicated effects happening in the world as we're like seeing some stuff happen. So yeah, this is Yakutita Carry It Forward student project that I made with Unity, and it's sort of like about like my own issues with like, you know, cultural reclamation and things like that, because that's sort of like something that I felt I was struggling with a couple years ago. I'm feeling like a lot more confident about it now, feeling like, you know, really proud to be an Innu Soto dude, as you should be proud of where you come from as well, because it's awesome, you know. And so yeah, a project like this helped me like express that, but also, you know, helped me teach myself some stuff about Unity and the ways I could like sort of use it. So yeah, those were just a couple of you know, different projects that I'd made with Unity. I think I had started working with Unity maybe about 5 years ago. It was when I was in college, and we basically had this independent study course, and I took that course to download Unity for the first time, and made this like small VR project. And, you know, ever since then, kind of haven't been looking back, you know. And whenever, you know, I want to learn something new, I typically will make a project specifically for that. And so for like, you know, example, crappy home designer, I wanted to learn how to do a lot of stuff. Like I guess the one that immediately comes to mind is the dialogue system. I wanted something that was kind of like Animal Crossing, where like those characters kind of talk letter by letter in terms of their speech. And so that's something that I made here as well. But I also wanted something that, you know, was, you know, goofy and silly, more about my personality. And I don't know, just like was taking kind of conventional game design things and trying to put my own spin on them to make them more like from my perspective. Because I think like, you know, games can be, I've said this a ton of times, but games can be a powerful tool for empathy. And so the idea behind Crappy Home Designer is that like you have to pay loans back on time, whereas in the like, you know, Animal Crossing, which one was that? I think it was New Horizons. You get these loans and you just like pay them off whenever you want. But we know, you know, the real world doesn't work that way. And, you know, stuff like rent is, you know, something maybe I, you know, stress out about. And so I just wanted to make a game that like sort of reflected those sort of ideas, because that's definitely a, you know, a different perspective. And that's kind of the thing I would recommend anybody else do, is that they try and put their own spin on things or express themselves in a way that is like, you know, true to who they are, but also, you know, like I like to think I'm a silly person. And so, I mean, you saw the subwoofer thing, so like, you know, yeah, I'm silly. And so I, you know, have stuff like, you know, this cute little penguin who's going to be looking at you all the time for some reason. And, oh yeah, if I go to, where is it? Let me find it. What I did was I made my own like little acapella songs for like the game as it was playing. So you can sort of hear my voice multiple times in the background. But I also made a bad version, which I was way happier to make. Well, like, you suck!
Blah 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 blah.
All right.
Blah blah blah.
Okay. So yeah, that's basically the song that plays if you're not able to pay your bills on time. The game just like you know, gets mad at you, that sort of thing. And so like yeah, I love embedding myself into the sort of projects that I make. And I'm also a believer of like, you know, do what you love and you never work a day in your life. It is work. It's hard work. But like, you know, I love doing it. So what I often use Unity for as well is just working on contracts with like people and organizations to make them something that's sort of like interactive. Like currently I'm on a VR project where I'm going to be like, I'm setting a project up right now, but I'm also going to be, like sort of making scripted events happen, because it's sort of like a movie, I think it is. And so I'm going to be helping script out things like that using code. And so, I totally want to express that Unity could also be a tool definitely for that purpose as well, where you can, become a developer and, get paid to make things interactive and things like that. And you could also, join a Unity project as a designer who like takes care of the 3D modeling. You could be someone who adds the sound effects or, creates sound effects, implements them into the Unity project. There's just a ton of different shoes that you could wear when it comes to something, like Unity. There's a ton of different things that you can do, just like a ton of different things that you can use Unity for. So I thought it'd be fun to make some art with Unity and maybe show you what the export process looks like once you've made something and you want to share it with the world. So inside some folder, it's probably going to be up on Dropbox or something like that. We're going to have a Unity package called Generativeart. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to make some generative art using this Unity package that I've sort of prepared. This might be on Dropbox or something. I will provide links. And so we're going to click and drag this Unity package into the assets window, and it's just got two scripts in there that do some very cool stuff that we can use for our own purposes. This opened up Visual Studio automatically for some reason, and what I'm going to do is let's create a just create an empty game object for now, and then we will give it the gizmo of something like, I don't know, a little gray diamond. and we will call this mover. And to this mover game object, we're going to add the move to point script. And so move to point, we can specify some stuff like the speed at which this thing moves. So I'll just type in 5 for now. I don't know how fast that's going to be. And I'll just tick off like random, and that'll be, I think, good. We'll leave this set to tag based, and then we need to actually create what is called a tag. And then I'll just preemptively type in point here. Parent of points. No, we don't need any of that stuff. So now what we can do is create another empty game object, and we'll call this point. And for this point, we'll give it a gizmo as well. But maybe we'll make them, purple this time. And what we can do in this case is maybe quickly make a row of 10 of these. So Control D to duplicate. We'll make 5 of these and then highlight them all, duplicate the 5. Okay, so you see what I've done there. We're going to duplicate that as well. This is just to quickly demonstrate the sort of like things that we can do inside of Unity. And so I've selected this whole row now at this point, and I'm going to do the same. Just going to basically create like a grid, but I see this quickly getting out of hand in my editor. So I'm going to use this plus symbol and create an empty child or an empty game object. And I'll just call this container. But I want another row of these things first before I start doing that. Did it select all of them? Yes, it did. So I'm just going to make a row of, I guess, 5. That seems pretty good. And then the container, I will move to the center of this because I sort of want it to contain all of these points that I've made. And I'm going to put it all the way down there. Now I just want to select all of my points and put them inside of the container. And now this container, I can just duplicate over and over again to get multiple layers going for my thing here. So this mover is going to be moving to all of these purple points that we've sort of set up here. And what I'd also like to do, I guess I could demonstrate how it's sort of working. Actually, I'm going to get rid of these because I did this improperly, just because I'm like trying to rush. We can go to these points here and just highlight them all with the shift click. Then we can go to tag here and add the tag of point. So we're going to use the plus symbol. And we're going to use point as our tag. And so point is working there as well. Need to highlight all of them again. And then go to untagged in the inspector and change the tag to point. And the reason we're doing this is because mover is looking for point here. And like you'll see how this works once we've like played the scene. I'm just moving the container to that area. I'll have 2 going below. No, 3, because like, that's kind of cool. And then I'm going to move this up there because I just want a lot of points for these little things to move. So we have mover, and mover is going to be moving between these points, but we can't really see that. So what I'm going to do is you can actually move these little windows wherever you want inside of Unity. So I'm going to click on game here and put it to the right side and click on scene. And then I just want to make sure my camera's up in place to see all of this stuff. I think what I'll do for now is also get rid of the skybox, which is this thing that we're seeing right here. This like, this horizon. So I'm going to select the camera, go to clear flags, skybox, and go to solid color. And I'm going to change that color to black so that we can just see some stuff, make out what we're seeing here. So I'm going to select my mover just so that I'm able to see what's going on, at least at this point. Ideally, this thing is moving. So yeah, my mover is moving from all of these points that we've made, and it's got like 350 of them, which is super cool. And it's picking them randomly. And using this general concept, what we can do then is add a trail to this mover. So I'm going to go to add component trail renderer. And then by adding this component, you'll notice that, a little trail is starting to generate behind this thing. And that's super cool. It's a little too big right now though. So I'm going to change it from, I'm going to go into the trail renderer component. I'm going to change the width from 1.0 to 0.5 instead. And then what I'm going to do is right click and add a key and just drag this all the way down. And this just makes it so that the trail gets skinnier by the time it's like ending. And I'll set the time of the, yeah, I guess 5 seconds is fine for that. And lastly, I don't want this pink, so I'm going to go to my materials tab and use the circle here to pick out default line. And this will just give my trail like a white sort of look. But what I can sort of do is go into the color tab here as well, open that up, and then I'm going to click on this top right tab and set the alpha to 0. So this is going to make my trail sort of like fade out before it like completely like disappears. And then lastly, what I can do is add some colors. So for now, just for the like, I don't know, the cyberpunk aesthetic, which I love, I'm going to change the color of this white to a purple. Is that doing it? That's weird. It's behaving in a weird way. Let's see. Okay, that seems to be working. So I'm just clicking on these tabs, which is opening up this color window. I'm going to change this first one to purple, and then this other one to something that's like blue, neon blue or something like that. I think this purple could be a little bit more vibrant, so that's what I'm going to do. Nice. And so now this trail is like looking completely different than it did before. And so with this general concept, if I go back to the mover game object, I can increase its speed from 5 to 50, maybe. We'll see what that looks like. And then now we're seeing this, we're starting to see something like sort of come to life here. It's kind of like those screensavers on older Windows computers. And so now if I were to just duplicate this mover game object like 3 times, or maybe made like 5 of them, maybe made like 10 of them if you want, it's super up to you. You can do whatever you want. With all of those things made, now we have 10 of these trails, and now this like sort of shape is like starting to be made here. And what we could also do to like, because the lines are kind of like super straight right now, what we could do is create an empty game object and call this rotator. And then we can put all of our, we just want to make sure rotator is set up in the center of all these things. Then we can put container inside, or all of these containers inside of rotator. And then to the rotator game object, we will add the rotator script. And we'll give it a speed of like 30 maybe. We'll see what that looks like. And so what this will do is it'll rotate this entire container of objects we have over time. And that has a really nice effect on the trail renderers, because it allows the like more curves to sort of happen. But now what we can do is slow down these mover objects. So instead of 50, let's have them be like 10, so 5 times slower. And now we've just got a lot more curves happening here. Just like kind of cool, So this is something that's going to be random every time, and we can change the properties of these mover things. So instead of being random, we could have them, mirror to go back and forth between the 350 points that they're going to be finding. So yeah, we could just see what that looks like. Yeah, a lot of them are starting to like bunch up together, which is nice. And you could sort of just change these things to your heart's content, and you start getting these like cool results. You could change each and every one of these trails to have different colors. And once you were done something like that, if you wanted to share something like this, we could take a look at the sharing process. And so I like to share my projects on my itch.io page. To show you what that looks like, this is my itch.io page as it currently exists. We got Westqueten Bakwesikan, which I submitted to Imaginative a couple years ago. And then we also have, I like participating in game jams where I work with local friends to make games. So we got Wikiproof, we got Jackpatch, Call of Yakoobo, Rhyme Time, whole bunch of stuff. And we even have the Crappy Home Designer, which is cool. And so Itch is a place where you can find other games, upload your own games or your own art projects, as we could do right here. So I'm just going to save this, and then we'll go to File, Build Settings, and then we want to make sure that we're running a, a WebGL project. So what we're going to have to do is go to WebGL, and I see that I don't have my module installed, so I'm going to install it with Unity Hub. So by clicking that button, I'm suddenly taken here. WebGL has been added as a module. I'll click on Done. I did. It asked me a question. I had to say yes. So I said yes, and now that WebGL module is going to install for me. All right, so it looked like it finished installing for me, so I'm just going to click on Switch Platform, and that's going to take some time because Unity's got to basically change everything that I've made up to this point to work for a WebGL context. That's something that Unity really excels at. Like you see PS5, Xbox One, tvOS, Unity is capable of sort of packaging what you've made for a variety of different contexts. Like if you'll have to make changes to the project itself if you're wanting to move from a different platform to a different platform. In the case of Android, you don't really have a controller in that context, so you'd have to change controls so that things would be working like by touching the screen of your phone. But yeah, Unity is capable of, exporting games to, or any sort of thing to different contexts. Okay, it looks like that worked, but I'm guessing what I have to do here is just restart the project so that I'm getting more options displayed there. So I am just going to reopen this project after Xing it off. Awesome, so restarting Unity seemed to be just all I needed to do. So all I need to do now is add open scenes. That is this world that we have here, sample scene. And then if we go to, I think it's going to be just build and run. So we click on that. And what we want to do in this case is make a new folder specifically for builds. So we're going to create a builds folder. We'll select that folder. And after that, Unity will start building your project. And so after Unity built my project, it automatically showed up for me because I clicked on build and run. And so it popped up in my web browser, and this is something that it gave to me. So let's say that I wanted to put this on my itch.io page. The way we tackle that is we need to find where our specific build is located. So we put that build inside of a builds folder. And then we need to highlight these 3 items with a marquee selection. And then right click, and we're going to send these to a compressed zip folder. So we're going to click on that. And then I'll just call this art project build 1, I suppose. Yeah, that should be fine. And then now this is something that we can actually upload on the itch website. So on itch, when I'm on there, I've made an account. So if I go to this drop down arrow, I could go to upload new project. And then this is basically everything that I can fill out right here. And then like an important area to note is that the kind of project is HTML instead of downloadable. And once I have that, I have a zip folder, and I'm wondering where the upload section is. It should be right here. Oh yeah, that's a folder where I keep stuff about like projects that I work on. But I want to find this same build zip folder that we've just made, so I'm going to double click on that. And oh, it looks like I need to actually add a title before I'm able to upload that. So why don't we do that? So I'll just type in art demonstration, and then maybe a tagline. Used to show what's capable with Unity. That's awesome. It's it's like, yeah, I guess we have to keep it as a game because it's a WebGL file. I think that should be good to go. So we go to upload files now, and we use that same zip folder from before, and this file will be played in browser is what you want to tack on. And the viewport dimensions, yeah, we're going to auto detect the size, and that should be good. You could add a full screen button because that's super cool. And this other stuff you could fill out, depending on what your project is really. And so we're going to use this as a draft and just save and view page now. And now, because of what we've done, no dimensions or stuff detected. Okay, so I'm guessing because of the way it was built, we have to just manually specify the size it needs to be. And so we'll just do a 1280 by 720p. I can't remember what the sizes were in this particular build. So let's just use the page, run the game. And now the project is up on itch. It's up as a draft right now, so other people can't see this right now. But yeah, that's just one of the many ways that you could use Unity to share the work that you're making, specifically with Unity. And so yeah, that's I think that's everything that I wanted to go over with Unity. It's such an amazing tool, and it's like really. What do you call it? Like if issues are just as simple as like Googling them to find a solution, like that's totally deadly. You know, like you could make anything that you sort of want with Unity because of its capabilities, of its ease of use. It's a free engine, so you could totally do you know, really like sky's the limit with something like Unity. You could make whatever you want.
Now, Dallas, for the fabulous masterclass. I know I'm personally really excited to try this out, and for everyone at home, you can submit any games or experiences you make to Imaginative for next year's festival. Our next session is called Making Kin with the Machines, where panelists discuss artificial intelligence as approached through an Indigenous framework. So stay tuned. Ona!